Hello, everybody, and welcome to Galactic Tabletop. I'm Galaxy Master Alex.
And I'm Neophyte John.
Today, we're going to be talking about how to play the amazing game of Stars Without Number. We are going to be deep diving into the mechanics and rules of Stars Without Number, starting off with roleplay. What is roleplay? John, what would you describe roleplay to be?
You know, I always think of roleplay as the act of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and trying to live, act, talk, think, and do like what that person would do.
That's a really apt description. The way I describe it is to act or pretend to be a specific character you are playing. Role-playing Stars Without Number does not require you to change your voice, act out, or dress up like the character you're playing. Although that can be a lot of fun to do those things, it is definitely not required. The only thing required for roleplay is for you to decide how your character would act in any given situation.
Stars Without Number is just like every other tabletop game and any role-playing game, honestly.
Role-playing the physical abilities such as strength, dexterity, and constitution can be easier for a lot of players. And then role-playing the mental abilities such as charisma, intelligence, and wisdom, those can be a lot harder. For example, you might have a player who is a little shy on one side or shyer than the rest of the table, but they want to play the charming and dashing starship captain. This is where the dice can be the equalizer. As a Galaxy Master, you might ask your player what they want to accomplish. This can help the player explain their ultimate goal and gives them the opportunity to shine at the table. Such an approach can be used for both physical and mental abilities. Dice rolls in Stars Without Number are key, and roleplay has no exception. Now that we've gone over what roleplay is, now we can go over the skills and attributes that should be used in roleplay situations. The main roleplay abilities are connect, know, lead, notice, perform, talk, trade, and work. Work is a bit of a catch-all for any background your character might have had, and it doesn't fit into any other skill set. Any skill can be a roleplay skill. However, in most roleplay situations, you're probably going to be using one of the already mentioned.
Are all of these skills, are these all charisma skills, or is there a somewhat of a mixture?
Well, the fantastic thing about Stars Without Number is skills and abilities or attributes, they're not linked. You can have someone who is charismatic doing skills that you might consider being wisdom-based. The player really just needs to come up with a situation into which that ability matches their skill set.
No, that makes sense, and I think that's part of what's really appealing about Stars Without Number.
Yeah, it's definitely more unique that way than some RPG games that we played. Skills are important for any role. For it is the value that you add to your dice roll. If you have a nothing, so not even a 0, in a non-combat skill, you add a -1 to that roll. If you have a 0, you add 0 to that roll. And if you have a 1, you add a 1 to that roll, so on and so forth. You also add the attribute modifier to the roll as well. And the attribute modifier is actually determined by your Galaxy Master. However, feel free to always try to ask if you can use the attribute you want to use. As a Galaxy Master, I absolutely love it when my players ask if they can use a different skill or a different attribute. As long as it comes along with a good reason, I really appreciate it because it shows they're engaged and it shows them thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, like an example could be with no, like maybe there's a strongman competition and you happen to be quite strong. Maybe you could sell your Galaxy Master to use strength for your no check or anything really.
Yeah, definitely like knowing the correct workout form or how to power lift this heavy weight. Definitely, that's not something someone who's read a lot of books probably won't know. So that would be a fantastic example of that, John. So when should you make a skill check? Well, in short, you should make a skill check when your Galaxy Master asks for a roll. And when they ask for a roll, it means that someone with basic knowledge of how to accomplish that goal would have a good chance of failing. The DC will reflect this, and it should never go below 6. So 6 and up.
How when you ask for a skill check, how are you thinking? How do you want your players to ask you? Is it, hey, do I want to know something, or is it more descriptive of what they want to do?
Always, if you can be more descriptive, it is always better. Because if you just want to know basic information, I'd probably just tell you that. However, if you want to be like, I want to know everything about the aliens that we're going to be encountering here, that's going to be a really high DC. But if you say, well, have I ever maybe faced them, or would I know anything about their weaknesses, something detailed, we can definitely get more nitty gritty with that, and we can use different skill sets rather than just know or something else that you might have come up with. It really opens the door as a Galaxy Master to engage with my players.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it really just, like you said, it opens that discussion. Maybe there's a better skill that would fit this. Maybe there's a way your specific character can relate to it that's kind of unique and can make a higher percentage success chance for a skill check.
Exactly. So once your Galaxy Master asks for a skill check and tells you the attribute and skill, you roll 2d6 dice. You add those 2d6 dice together, then you add your skill modifier and your attribute modifier to the roll when you are done. Some perks allow for you to roll an additional d6 and drop the lowest. If your roll equals out or is greater than the difficulty class, also known as DC, it's a success. If it roll is lower than the DC.
Now, for these kind of checks, will you always know the difficulty class ahead of time, or is that something that's dependent on the Galaxy Master?
That is 100% on the Galaxy Master. As a Galaxy Master, I love to tell my players the difficulty class, especially if they have any level of skill in that class. They can. I imagine that, hey, if I know how to fix things and I need to fix the ship, I should be able to determine, ooh, this is a really big job, or yeah, that's going to take me 5 minutes, you know?
No, exactly.
So either way, if you succeed or fail, both instances give you a lot of roleplay opportunity. And no failure or success should determine the entire mission's success or failure.
No, I think that's a really good point, because oftentimes bad rolls can lead to player frustration. You know, oftentimes I think when you Game Master or Galaxy Master for us, you know, sometimes it's a failure, but often that leads to a new door opening, a alternative path or an alternative solution may come up.
Or I just make it cost you something for the success.
Yep.
Like, oh, you failed the charisma check, but you know what? An extra 50 credits in my pocket can make that success. So yeah, it definitely adds. You can add a lot on a failure. It should actually be an opportunity as a Galaxy Master and as a player for you to go, well, I didn't get to do this, but here's how I think I can also make it work. You shouldn't just try to, like, beat your head against the wall to see if you can break the wall, essentially.
Yeah, it's not a war of attrition. It's a game to have fun, and part of that is failing and rolling with the punches.
100%. So when it comes to difficulty class, you might want to know, like, what is the low difficulty and what is, like, a high difficulty. Difficulty class ranges from 6 to 14 plus. Anything really, if the Galaxy Master makes something to 14 plus, it should be something that is relatively impossible to be done. And any difficulty class that's above an 18 is completely impossible, because you can only roll a max of 12. Your highest attribute can only be +2. And if you have a maxed out in skill, you only get a +4, which can only equal up to 18. So anything of 18 would be a near impossible, or if not completely impossible, thing to achieve. But starting off with DC 6 to 7, it is a relatively simple task, but it's more advanced than what you can expect from someone who is competent in that skill. A DC 8 or 9 is a challenge that even a professional would have trouble accomplishing, but would still be successful more often than not. DC 10 to 11 is a task that anyone who is not a true expert in the area would completely fail. And 12 to 13 is only the master could achieve the goal with any regularity. 14 and up, once again, just it should be near impossible.
Now, too, one question would be, so as you get, say, better, maybe as you level up or you put points into your piloting skills, will you make the player roll maybe these DC 6 and 7s check? As this essentially now it used to be an advanced task. Now it's pretty simple for somebody who's been around the block a few times.
I completely get what you mean. Personally, as a Galaxy Master, when you've mastered out a complete skill to like a 4 or a 3, I might not even have you roll that many rolls for it. The only time I might have you roll is if it's a contested check against another pilot or another hacker that you're trying to beat out. But because like once you hit 14, 4, you are literally the top of the map. You know, you are the best of the best. You are the pro. You are the picture in the dictionary of that subject.
Yeah, it seems like those roles at that point are just really to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. So like unless you're wanting to do something crazy like I'm a starship pilot and I want to thread a needle between two asteroids that are about to collide and get away from this, Star Destroyer that's trying to chase me, yeah, I'm probably not going to have you make that too many rolls for a pilot. Of course, it's always fun if they want to do something a little bit more on the edge. That's when you make them do the roll. But you definitely should take their skill into consideration when it comes to that. All right, well, skill checks have many situational buffs and debuffs. A hacker working on a tablet that got hit by a laser pistol might have a -2 to the roll, while a hacker who used to work cybersecurity for the company might have a +2 to the roll.
Now, for this, does the inter-party dynamics come into play? Like maybe there's somebody in your party who worked at the company. Maybe it's not the hacker himself, but he's got the other player also worked at the company, and maybe he can support it.
Well, actually, that's what we're about to go in next is skill checks that are also aided or opposed. So if you, let's say, have another player who wants to help, they can make their own roll at the same DC that you are making. And if it's a success, the first player gets a +1. Now, I know that might not seem like a lot. However, if someone is attempting to help you and they fail, there's literally 0 consequences for that failure attempt. So you could have your whole party try to attempt to help you, but you can only benefit from one help at a time. But if you have 3 people in your party and 2 of them try to help and 1 succeeds, you still get your +1 with 0 downfall. Opposed skill checks, on the other hand, are a bit interesting. So, if you were trying to sneak past an NPC guard, both the PC and the NPC would make their respective skill checks, and the highest wins. In the event of a tie, it goes to the PC. So, this is where aided skill checks can definitely come in. Let's say you need to sneak past a guard, and you have a talker and you have a sneaky boy. Sneaky boy is going to be like, hey, go talk to the guard so he's distracted while I get past him. That's when you can have an aided opposed skill check.
So in that case, you would have the talker roll, so maybe a talk or something similar connect check with the guard, and while he's successful, then maybe the sneaker gets a bonus for his roll.
Get a +1 to that roll, or in my case, if the talker rolls high enough, I'll even just let the talker completely leave away the guard because some people are that charismatic. It's all up to the guy.
Yes. Now, one question is, how do you decide when it becomes an active or check, or is it like just a passive DC?
So passive DCs we're getting into a little bit nitty-gritty stuff here, but passive DCs are actually kind of have a debuff to them. So let's say the guard is kind of just a lazy guard, and they're just doing passive watching. They actually would roll their notice check with a -2 to it. So passive skill checks are still a roll with a That answer your question?
That answers my question.
Excellent. All right, we kind of covered the role play area, the basics of role play, the roles you're going to be kind of making and how to aid. Now we're going to get into combat. So combat in Stars Without Number is deadly for both NPCs and PCs. Both parties should be wary into entering in such an event.
I think that's really the key factor, playing some Starts Without Number is it's a very high stakes game compared to D&D 5e or other tabletop games.
100%. Yeah, I mean, there are laser pistols. There are what are called mag rifles, which are basically magnetic rifles that shoot major damage. And I mean, no human alive can stand being shot 4 or 5 times.
There are no meat sponges in Stars Without Number.
Not really. No meat sponges. The spongiest you can get as a warrior is like 60 or 70 HP. And if you have a bunch of, level 1 guards all firing laser rifles at you, you're going to drop pretty quickly. So even at like your max level, you still need to be kind of wary of entering into combat. Now, less wary than a level 1 character for sure, but yeah, no meat sponges. So like many tabletop RPGs, combat has rounds. Each round is 6 seconds in game, and the order of who goes first is determined by initiative. An initiative is determined by your dex plus 1d8. Ties go to PCs. Initiative will go in order from highest to lowest. When you call for initiative as a Galaxy Master, you can either have one PC roll for the whole group, which means they all go on one turn, or have them roll individually. Each has its upsides and each has its downsides. If you have the PC roll for the whole group, the PCs can all go at the same turn. This can help focus and speed up the table for combat rounds. However, that means the enemies also all go at once, and if they're smart enemies, they can choose to focus fire on the clear threats of the table. Individual rolls have a bit of a benefit when it comes to this, but it does lead to slower combat rounds. However, it can feel more tactical and give each player their own spotlight just for a moment. Both have their ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with this, it's often just best to be flexible. Sometimes it's good to have everybody go on the same turn. Maybe it's a minor combat encounter, something you want to move through quickly. Or for a more like, you're fighting a head of the company, a big boss. You want to have everybody have their moment in the sun and spend time tactically going through the combat.
I completely agree. Honestly, combat should be a table decision. If you have a table that really enjoys combat as a rule, do the slow one. It's going to make everyone feel a little bit special. If you have a table that's really into roleplay, yeah, just have everyone go at once. And I mean, it is what it is. Or as John was saying, play it by ear. Sometimes it's nice to have the slosh through wades of enemies and everyone just goes at once. Or it can be better if you have a boss fight. Everyone gets their individual turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the most important aspect of the game. It's how the game master and the players want to play.
Now, since combat is so deadly, there are some awesome features to make it a little bit more friendly to PCs or player characters. The first one is ambushes. Ambushes in Stars Without Number can be an absolutely devastation to party and NPC parties alike. The Galaxy Master should use caution when using ambushes against their players. The rules actually recommend not ambushing your party unless they are doing something extremely foolish. And my example of this is getting super drunk in the worst part of town, walking around the streets yelling about how much money they just made on their last job.
As a player character who's yelled about how much money they made on the last job, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, definitely not your best idea to do that. On the other hand, encouraging your players to set up ambushes can be the best way for the party to have a low casualty count and feel really cool while they're doing it. Ambushes should be a tool that they use if they know combat is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ambushes, the best part of it is it really allows the role play to lead into combat, to play on the strengths of some characters' role play abilities to lead into a very effective combat session.
Yeah, like one session you guys got a whole town to ambush a tyrannical cowboy boss boy. That was fun. So yeah, definitely it allows for role play and more motion picture cinematics. It can actually be a lot of fun. To help with ambush setups, there are a few rules for unseen attackers. First rule is you can shoot from a prepared firing position. A prepared firing position gives you a +2 to their attack bonus.
Now, can any player or any character do this, or is it a specific class that can prepare?
Anybody can do this. It is ranged attacks, so you do have to be using a ranged weapon for it. But yes, any player can absolutely do this. It takes about 1 minute to set up a prepared attack position. So yeah, if you know like someone's banging at the doors trying to get in, set up a prepared attack position. Take them out. Second rule is execution attacks, and as execution attacks are named, it applies. It almost always insta kills. PCs and NPCs can do execution attacks. So, to perform an execution attack, the PC or NPC must spend 1 full minute in preparation of hitting the target without the target becoming aware or alert of an attack. The target must be in view for the full minute and must be within range of the weapon. If you are using a melee weapon, the full minute can be used with the PC or NPC approaching the target unnoticed. However, the PC or NPC cannot move up to the target in the same turn as the execution attack. Execution attacks ignore armor as long as the weapon being used is able to damage such armor. So if someone's wearing power armor, you have to use a tech level 4 weapon or up. And the attack does max damage, and that's where the execution really comes in.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with this, it's a lot about, okay, now you've got one person who's going to do this execution attack. How do you as the party set up this? So like, how are you getting this target to stay still for a minute? How is they not getting distracted? Or, hey, why am I here for a minute? Is something bad going to happen to me?
Yeah, that is actually what you guys did to the cowboy.
He had it coming.
So if you are using a ranged attack, the PC or NPC must roll a skill shoot check. The DC starts at 6 for point blank, so that means you are literally within 1 meter of them.
Abraham Lincoln style.
Too soon. DC 8 for normal range, so your first range level, and then DC 10 for a long range.
That's the Kennedy.
Too soon. Melee attacks always hit, so you don't have to roll any skill check for.
Now, are there certain like class abilities that make the execution attacks more effective, or go into the execution attack, or make it easier to set up, or something like that?
I mean, if you're an expert, sneaking is definitely going to help you, especially if you pick that as your expert skill. But outside of that, no, there really isn't anything for that for execution. I mean, as a Galaxy Master, you can definitely work with your group as if like you have a whole party setting the whole thing up. You might not even have them roll, but that is up to the Galaxy Master.
Just be good at shooting.
Be good at shooting or stabbing or sneaking, I guess, if you're going to move up to them. Third rule is ambush initiative, and I really like ambush initiative and how it works. When an ambush occurs, each NPC rolls the respective skill check. If they are performing the ambush, they roll sneak. And if they are being ambushed, they roll notice check. Of course, once again, you can always make your argument for the skill and the attribute. And then it goes in order from highest to lowest. Defenders win ties, so the people being ambushed win the ties. If an NPC or PC fails to notice any ambusher, then they roll initiative at the beginning of round 2. Pretty awesome.
So, I mean, in this, would it sometimes you wouldn't even have a chance to notice, right? Is that how I'm understanding it, right?
Well, a chance, you get a roll, but like, let's say a whole party rolls and the lowest an ambusher rolled was an 8 because they hid really well. They did time to prep it, all that. The lowest they got was an 8. And then let's say 2 party members roll below that 8. They are going to roll initiative at the beginning of next round. But if, let's say, you roll a 14 on your notice and the highest an ambusher got was a 13, then you're going before the first ambusher.
Ah, yes.
All right. Types of actions in combat. So there are 4 actions you can do in combat, 3 of which you can do on your turn. The first is your main action. This is your action that you're going to be doing within 6 seconds, such as an attack, heal an ally, or use a control board to pilot a drone. This is what you'll primarily will be doing during your entire turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's simply, what do you want to do? You've got 6 seconds. What do you want to do?
Exactly. The second is your move action. Your move action is your movement of 10 meters, whether it is running, climbing, swimming, or just standing back up. It is your entire move action to stand back up. You always get your movement. However, you cannot split your movement between your main actions. So if you use your main action before or after your movement is fine, but if you move 5 meters, main action, you cannot move another 5.
Yes, so either, yeah, that's different from 5e, but I think it honestly makes the combat, it makes everything go a lot smoother and quicker.
It does help out with a lot. It also prevents just peeky boys, like, oh, I'm peeking around a corner, fire,
Yep.
back behind cover.
Make a decision.
Yeah, it makes it super annoying when people want to do that, because I'm like, well, they're behind cover, you can't shoot them. They're like, well, I guess I got to hold my action to shoot them, which, by the way, to hold your action, it costs you your main action and your movement. That's something to take into consideration. But you can sacrifice your main action to gain more movement, an additional 10 meters, just like your dash.
Mm-hmm.
Third action you can take is your on-turn action. This is anything you can reasonably do on your turn, and you have unlimited of them, but it is up to your Galaxy Master's discretion as when they tell you to stop.
I'm going to read the entire Constitution as my my turn action. Am I allowed to do that?
No. These actions would be dropping your weapon, saying something, or drawing a ready item. That's an on-turn action. Mm-hmm. Basic things. And lastly is your instant action. Instant action is probably one of the more restrictive ones, and every player has instant actions. However, they often have a cost. The first would be, let's say you're a psychic and you have a psychic ability that allows you to do an instant action. That's going to cost you effort. And if you don't have effort, you can either torch to get it, which don't do that. We'll go over torching in the psychic episode. Or you just, some instant actions require your main action that you haven't taken already. So let's say you are 4th in the round. And you haven't gone yet, but you want to use an instant action that requires your main action. You can do that. Let's say you're 3rd in the round and you've already done your main action and you want to do an instant action that requires your main action. No go.
So the instant action can be used at any point?
Any point.
Anybody's turn? Any
and
point?
You have unlimited of them as long as you have the resources to use them. You can do it during the middle of someone's attack if you want.
That is far better than the 5e reaction.
Yes, it's fantastic. There are restrictions to it, but we'll go over every instant action that you can do that's in the book. Now that we've gone over each action, we can go over hitting your enemy. This is where the fun is in combat, or the frustration.
The beauty of the roll.
Yes. The dice are fickle, let me tell you. One of the most fun and frustrating features in combat is attacking your enemies. To attempt such a feat, you must first make an attack roll as a main action. To do this, you roll 1d20, take the number and add your attack bonus, relevant skill, such as shoot, stab, punch, or telekinesis. Add those together. Then you add any relevant attribute modifier, most likely your dex. And then lastly, you add any other bonuses such as prepared firing position or a laser weapons bonus to hit. If that number is higher or equal to the target's armor class, you have hit the target. Congratulations. Roll damage. Your damage is based off of your weapon and your attribute modifier. If the number is lower than the target's AC, You missed. Try again next round.
I mean, I think the big thing here is it's all up to the D20. You know, there's no, oh, I'm just going to do damage anyways. It's, do you hit or do you miss? It's that simple for everything.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Some weapons have things called shock damage. And shock damage is not electrical damage, but rather it's the damage that the target takes when you hit them or miss them. Shock damage is only applied from melee weapons, and it is the minimum damage you can do to a target on a hit, and it's the damage you do to a target on a miss. For example, a large advanced weapon, melee weapon, has a shock damage of 2, but you also get to add your attribute modifier of strength to it, which is if you have a +1, you now do 3 shock damage on a miss, or a minimum of 3 damage on a hit. However, if a target's AC is high enough, the target can ignore shock damage. This AC varies based off a weapon, but for example, the large advanced weapon, anyone with an AC of 15 or lower will take shock damage.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you can't just use like a sword and stab a tank. It's not going to do anything.
It really isn't.
I've tried.
Now that we've gone over damage and hitting your enemy, we're going to go over the most common actions in combat. The first one is a melee attack. This is what you do when you have a melee weapon and attack within range of a creature. They have to be in an adjacent square or tile or hexagon to you. Make a ranged attack. This is your basic, I'm shooting at my target. And that is, hey, they're within range of my weapon or they're extended range, which can have some interesting penalties to it. Making a ranged attack has its benefits. However, there is one downside to it. Let's say I have a laser pistol and John has a sword and he comes up to stab me. Okay, he attacks me, my turn. I'm going to shoot him with my laser pistol. I now have a -4 to that attack roll to hit John.
You made a mistake.
Yeah, and he's applying shock damage to me. It's not fun for me. Melee weapons are definitely viable in Stars Without Number. They are not useless. I know everyone wants their laser cannon and, lever action plasma rifle, anything that your heart desires.
Don't bring a laser pistol to a up-close sword fight.
Don't. Know what is even worse? Don't bring a laser rifle to an up-close gunfight, because if you have a rifle, any two-handed ranged weapon, now, instead of a -4 to hit me, he gets nothing. He doesn't even get to make an attack roll on me with that weapon.
Chop.
I just get to keep on hitting him. And he is stuck unless he makes a fighting withdrawal, which is the next one we will be doing, fighting withdrawal. Fighting withdrawal is a disengagement from any melee foes around them. You don't actually have to move away, but it is recommended if you do so. You use your main action as a fighting withdrawal, and then you can use your movement to get away from them. The next one we're going to do is the instant action snap attack. A snap attack is one of those instant actions we were talking about that requires you to still have your main action ready to you. So if I'm 4th in the round and John is 1st in the round and he's coming at me with his sword, I might choose to make a snap attack at him because I know I'm not going to get to use my laser rifle at him when he gets in close range. Now, snap attacks have some major penalties to them. So you can make a snap attack with a ranged or a melee weapon. However, you take a -4 penalty to the hit roll. If multiple combatants decide to make snap attacks, they all happen at the same time and are resolved simultaneously.
I mean, it really seems like this is a desperate measure ability. It's like, if I don't do this, I'm probably going to be hurting badly. 100%.
I actually had the Tyrant Cowboy and one of my table players make they each made a snap attack at each other because it was that we meet at high noon and draw. So I made those snap attacks because they wanted to get it out real quick. Fortunately, the table PC player actually did hit and the other The NPC did not. But it is 100% desperate measure. Most NPCs are not willing to make such a sacrifice unless they are veterans in combat. That is stated in the book for Snap.
Well, I mean that makes sense when you can overcome that penalty. That's the only time you'd really be really willing to do it.
Exactly. The next instant action is Total Defense, and this one's pretty nice because this is an instant action that the combat focuses on nothing other than avoiding knives, gunfires, and hurled spears or other perils in the vicinity. Using Total Defense as the user's main action for the round, so once again, you have to have your main action available. You become immune to shock damage from melee weapons regardless of your armor class, and you get a bonus 2 to your AC until your next turn. So not the turn that on that round, but the next round.
Is this really the curl in the fetal position ability? The curl in the fetal position action?
I mean, if that's how you want to describe your Total Defense armadillo style, you're more than welcome to. I imagine it more you're just focusing on dodging the enemy.
That's a more honorable way to think about it.
Yeah. So the next one is actually your move action, but you're not moving at all, and it is club up a weapon. This is where you take your weapon, and let's say John was in melee with me, and I had my rifle, and he was attacking me with a sword. I can use my move action to club up my weapon now, and use it as a basic club. Clubs do not do any shock damage, and if you roll max damage with your weapon, it actually breaks your gun. So pistols count as small primitive weapons for attacking, and then like rifle sized guns count as medium primitive weapons for your attack. But yeah, you can break your rifle. So if like John was attacking me and I club up my weapon and then I punch him with it and I hit and I somehow roll the full damage on it, I just broke my rifle.
Again, it seems like a desperate measure that hopefully you'll never encounter the situation where you need to do that.
Yeah, fighting withdrawal is probably going to be my better option. Hopefully I have a melee combatant on my table that can intercept John from getting to me. The next action is your move action, and this is your just basic movement. You run. You can run 10 meters. And remember, you can always use your main action as a move action. So if you want to dash twice, you can run twice. If you want to club up your weapon and move, you can do that. However, you cannot sacrifice your move for a main action. Not a thing. Another main action is, of course, just using any skill that would be reasonable within 6 seconds, right? Picking a lock, if you're really good at it, it can be done in 6 seconds.
Hacking a computer. You might not be able to get very far, but if you're an expert, maybe you could get something out of there.
Hacking rules are actually very specific, and we're going to have a whole episode on that.
Great.
It's not like Cities Without Number, which Cities Without Number hacking rules I might employ in this game because they're both written by Kevin Crawford, and they are both just fantastic. But yeah, using any skill, such as like healing a downed team.
Kicking a door down or attempting.
I mean, that would definitely be main action in my opinion, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Another main action, which can be very frustrating, is reloading your weapon. However, I will say this. If you are in combat for more rounds than ammo you have in your clip, you are in deep.
You know, all of this I'm getting, let's bring laser swords instead of laser pistols to a fight.
Why do you think I do? I love melee in this game. It is like
it's a very high risk, high reward, you know, because if you go second on the initiative turn and they're starting to shoot at you, you might not make it to your turn.
Yeah, but that's for anything. Like if you're second on your initiative and you have a gun and they start shooting at you, you might not make it to your turn.
That is true. That is true.
But yeah, no, I absolutely love it. I feel like there's more upsides to it than there are down. Now, if I'm going to be assassinating someone, like with the execution attack, 100% I want to go ranged because the closer you get to somebody, the more likely they are going to be to spot you.
What are you doing standing over me? You've been standing over me for 59 seconds. I hope something bad's not going to happen.
That is perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Instant action, we've already gone over, kind of just dropping something. You literally drop something. It is a move action to pick something up. So if you want to pick something up, use your movement. Stand up is your move action. Going prone is an on-turn action. Doesn't cost you anything, but you get to go prone.
What are the benefits of going prone? Is there a...
Yes. So some major benefits of going prone are it's harder for ranged attacks to hit you. You get a +2 to your ranged attack. Here, I can actually pull it up. So shooting a distant prone foe is a -2 to that attack. Shooting or meleeing an adjacent prone foe. So if someone's prone next to you, you get a +2 to that attack. Meleeing while prone is a -4. The target, so yeah, and then shooting from a prepared firing position, I do count that as like, or no, you already got that one. Shooting or meleeing from adjacent. I think going prone gives you a +2. I'm going to do that. That's something I do allow because as someone who has handled a rifle before, it is much easier to shoot while crouched or prone. Every video game also puts that into a situation.
Video games are always 100% correct.
Yes.
So,
I mean, we are in a simulation, and video games are a simulation, so it's just mirroring real world, right?
True. Could not have said it better myself.
All right. So that does cover combat maneuvers. So with combat maneuvers being all wrapped up, I think we'll go ahead and end it there. Well, thank you for joining us as we explore the depths of Stars Without Number. Please go ahead, like us, and subscribe. It goes a long way into supporting the channel and spreading the amazing hobby of tabletop RPG. Until next time, I'm Galaxy Master Alex.
I'm Neophyte John.
And this has been Galactic Tabletop.